Hello there, this is a short video on 3 books by George Orwell that you might wish to consider reading to gain insights into politics, economics, perhaps the darker side of the human psyche, particularly in the case of 1984, but also possibly a little bit about the history of Britain with regards to the road to Wigan Pier. The first book I'd like to briefly talk about is one that is often taught in schools, Animal Farm. George Orwell wrote this for children. It's a children's book. It's about a fictional farm in which the animals, after one night being told by one of the older, wiser pigs about how man is exploiting the animals for what they produce, and is himself not producing anything. And so the animals, upon hearing this revelation, as it were, which the pig, Old Major, apparently in the book received in a dream, he conveys this message one night in a secret meeting in the barn. All the animals gather together, and he tells them to overthrow the farm owners, Mr. Jones and the men who are controlling the farm, and to take control of the farm themselves. And so in doing that, they would be able to keep and use the fruits of their work, what they produce, and they won't just be stolen, as Old Major the pig said before he died. So the pigs do this. They overthrow the owners of Manor Farm, but things don't quite work out as envisaged, and quite quickly, far from all animals being equal, which was one of the key doctrinal messages of the original theory put forward, that turns out in practice not to be so, and things deteriorate. And to get to the conclusion of the book, you'll need to get to the very last sentence, because that summarises what happens after the revolution that occurs in this fictional world. The second book I would like to briefly mention that I think might be worth checking out. I actually bought this book, which contains all of the novels by George Orwell. I haven't yet read them all. I have read 1984. I actually read the novel quite late. I was around 25 when I first read it. And it's a gripping, quite frightening, dystopian, hellish world in which individualism simply doesn't exist, and the state, the totalitarian state, has complete control over the past, present and future, and the main protagonist, Winston Smith. The story is based on him and his journey from being against the regime to, in the end, being broken by it. And I don't want to say too much, because one of the powerful things about this book is the ending, and it will leave a lasting impact. It certainly has on me. I was quite moved by the book, and I occasionally from time to time think about it, and it's where many words such as Big Brother, Room 101, thought crime, doublethink, these terms that are now in everyday usage, they come from this book. which I believe is one of the most read novels of all time. It's been read in many countries all over the world. The third book I would like to just mention, this one isn't a fictional book. The Road to Wigan Pier has two parts. The first is an attempt by George Orwell to go to the north of England. He went to the north of England, this was in the 1930s, to various industrial towns. What you've got to remember is that in Britain in the 1930s, the north of England was still very much dominated by factories, and the whole of the north of England was working in the manufacturing sector, and in hard labour, in real manual labour jobs. So he goes to a number of towns and a number of areas in the north of England, and he details what he sees. And one thing that comes across in his commentaries and his observations is his honesty and his plainness of speech. He writes down precisely what he sees. He talks about absolutely appalling conditions for people living in Wigan and in other towns in the north of England. One thing that I took from the book was how hard coal mining is, or was. People still mine today. I think in the world today it's mostly done by machines, but back in those times people went down into a coal mine, which may have been a mile down, and then they had to walk a mile, possibly even more, to get to the face where they would dig for coal. And he goes down there, and he describes how brutal that particular job was, in no uncertain terms. And I wasn't quite aware. I mean, obviously, one imagines that job to be laborious, hard graft, dangerous, but I wasn't quite aware of just how hard that job was, and probably it was one of the most difficult jobs ever. So he goes into detail about that. I think all of these books are well worth reading for a number of reasons. Firstly, George Orwell is a brilliant writer, and if you are interested in writing yourself, you can learn a great deal from his style of writing. It makes people more aware of what industrialisation actually meant to the north of England in particular. The two aforementioned novels I think are worth reading because they offer insight into potential dangers of unlimited power, and of losing things which are essential to the freedom of the individual and the prosperity of a society. So I will leave that with you today. Thank you for watching. More to come.